A former union president has announced his candidacy for Illinois' 36th Senate District. Democrat Greg Johnson is a local labor activist. He was a former AFSCME union president that represented workers at the East Moline Correctional Center. His issues focus on education funding, tax reformation, and working class issues. Republican State Senator Neil Anderson currently holds that seat, which covers parts of Carroll, Henry, Rock Island, and Whiteside counties. Senator Neil Anderson is joining us live this morning. News 8's Jonathan Katz explains where he's having breakfast with him this morning. Jonathan?
Good morning there, Angie. We're at Country Style Ice Cream in East Moline, Illinois right now. Avenue of the Cities and Kennedy Drive. State Senator Neil Anderson is joining us now. Thanks for joining us, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
So, one of the stories Angie just read, you have a candidate running against you already. We're talking about Greg Johnson. What do you know about him, and I guess what do you feel like you need to do, maybe campaign-wise, because the election will be here before you know it in November of next year?
Yeah, so, I mean, right now we're 16 months out. I have a lot to focus on the state level. We have education funding reform that we need to go back down there and take care of. But, you know, listen, this is the good thing about democracy. People have a choice, and that's great.
So let's talk about the state budget really quickly. Tell us why you voted no. You didn't support the budget that was passed by the State House and the State Senate. And now that it has been passed, where does the state go from here? Because we're still in so much debt right now.
Yeah. So there's three bills that make up the budget bill. There's the spending, the revenue, and what's called the BIMP, or the budget implementation. The problem that I see is we've done nothing but kick the can down the road. There's no mechanism to pay off our backlog of unpaid bills in this bill. Our taxes got raised, and there's no reforms. We could have done this 2 years ago if this is what we were going to do. So yes, we have a budget. That's not a bad thing, but the work is far from over. And the more and more we see what's in this bill, the worse it is. I mean, we just found out yesterday that in the budget implementation bill, there's $11 million being swept out of mental health care funding. There's millions of dollars being swept out of...
You're talking about the bill that was passed.
Correct,
okay.
Yeah. Millions of dollars being swept out of 911. These are things that, you know, are fundamental to, you know, helping those that are in need, and we can't be having sweeps in there.
Let's talk about the education bill that you just brought up.
Yeah.
That's the one that's still on the table, one that the State House, State Senate still has to consider. Do you support it right now? And I guess what happens next? When could the State Senate and the State House look at it?
So I didn't support it the first time it went around, and it's a little frustrating, and I'll tell you why. So the funding formula change that's in SB1, totally agree with. What I don't agree with is the fact that there's $700 million bailout to Chicago. So they're getting 67% more funding per student than everywhere else in the state. This is supposed to be a fair, equitable funding education reform, and this is anything but fair and equitable. Now, it is true that there is a hold harmless in SB1, and schools are not going to see any less than they have. But in my district alone, if you take out the Chicago factor of it, the Chicago bailout, that means $4.3 million more in funding to our schools. So we'll see what's going on here when we go back down there. We're asking President Cullerton to release that bill so the governor can either sign it, veto it, or do an amendatory veto.
Appreciate you joining us for the 6 o'clock hour. More coming up at 6:30. Angie, we will send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Senator Anderson. And don't forget, we do a special Facebook Live to show you the behind the scenes of our Breakfast With. That takes place right after Good Morning Quad Cities on the WQAD Facebook page. Next week, we're having breakfast with Chef Brad Scott at Scott Community College. We'll be talking to him about the school's culinary arts program inside its state-of-the-art kitchen. That's next Thursday, starting at 5 a.m.